Welcome to Destination Marriage, a podcast about successfully navigating the winding roads of marriage. Whether you're newlyweds, engaged, looking to get married, or have been married for years, we want to share with you how we have navigated those winding roads over the past 19 years in our marriage.
Join us on this journey as we talk about real-life experiences in a marriage and what we have learned along the way. We discuss love, travel, fitness, raising kids, friendships, and much more, all from the perspective of our lives together.
Happiness, love, grace, passion are some of the things we all strive for in a marriage, and we invite you to take this journey with us.
Welcome to Destination Marriage.
Welcome to episode 28 of Destination Marriage. I'm Jackie, your host, and today Tommy's taking the day off, but I am thrilled to have you join us on this journey today. I have a wonderful guest and a dear friend. Chelsey Creswell is joining me today. We're going to discuss all things wellness and really focus on hormonal therapy. So Chelsey, just to kind of give you some insight into who she is and the value she brings to the table, she has been involved in the wellness and fitness lifestyle for over 20 years. She grew up in Southern California and holds a bachelor's degree in nutrition and dietetics. She is also a registered nurse, and prior to becoming a nurse, she was a certified strength and conditioning specialist through the National Strength and Conditioning Association and a licensed massage therapist. She's a Jackie of all trades. You like that? At the end of 2015, she decided to fulfill a lifelong dream and compete on the bodybuilding stage. She competed 3 times in 2016 and had the opportunity to win her first professional status as a natural WNBF figure competitor. Chelsey chose KKW to coach her to this win. Chelsey combines education and nutrition with her clinical experience to educate her clients on how food truly affects the body. She passionately believes that food is medicine and when used properly is the strongest catalyst for good health on this earth. Welcome to the podcast, Chelsey Creswell.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. I was so excited when you approached me about bringing the topic of wellness and fitness and just health in general into marriage.
Yeah.
And what role does it really play? Because I think it's a lot bigger than most people think.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think, I know we had talked about it. Well, we've been talking about it for a while, that we really wanted to sit down and have this conversation because we both have experienced this. And 100%, I mean, this is something that affects your home life and your marriage. And I think a lot of people are maybe unaware of,
Yes.
the effect that it actually has. So I'm really excited to have this conversation and kind of bring these pearls of wisdom to our listeners. Now, just to kind of provide our listeners with some additional insight as far as, just who you are, I'm curious to know if you wouldn't mind sharing what really ignited your passion to become a wellness coach.
I remember the exact day. Mm-hmm. And I was I was working in an ICU. I'm a critical care nurse. That's what I do. As a nurse, I've been in critical care for 10 years. So I do emergency and intensive care. So I was in an ICU one day and it was not a large ICU. It was about 9 beds and I was the charge nurse that day.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that we do as a charge nurse is, sometimes we'll kind of go room by room, like who is there for what reason. And just sort of have a running knowledge of what's going on on the unit. It's really, it's an important thing. So I was, standing in the middle of the unit, going room by room, and it hit me like a ton of bricks that every single person in that ICU was there related to obesity.
Wow.
Obesity was not their admitting diagnosis. Their admitting diagnosis may be heart failure. Their admitting diagnosis may be a vascular issue that they're losing a limb for. Mm-hmm. It can be all kinds of different things, but all of the patients in my entire unit were there due to very poor life choices. Yeah. Little small things that really add up year after year. Mm-hmm. And I just was in that moment, I was like, I am going to do something in prevention. Mm-hmm. I want to help people never get to this point.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, I could see how that would be probably a red flag or a wake up call. You realize, wow, there's a need here.
Yeah. And as a nurse, we love to fix and educate. And as much as, there's a very important role played in critical care, I think the more crucial role is really getting people to not need that care due to just simple lifestyle changes.
So who would you say, I mean, obviously, I know you had mentioned that most of those patients were suffering from obesity and maybe some other things as a result of obesity, but who would you say is probably your core clientele? You know, what does that demographic look like?
Yeah, you know, most of the people that we serve, I work for a company called KK Wellness, and most of the people that we serve, our demographic is mostly women, but certainly our male clientele is climbing, and we love that. Most of our women are somewhere between the age of probably 35 and 60, but I've worked with people, you know, in their early 20s. I've worked with a couple in their 70s. What we offer is really for anyone who is in a readiness phase of, I want to learn to change my life through food.
Yeah.
I want to learn good nutrition. I want to learn to fuel myself. I want to learn to use food as medicine. And I'm ready to, you know, really take that instruction, because it's, if the clients are not willing, it's just, you know, it just doesn't work. So really anyone that, you know, is tired of just being offered another pill and is ready to really make a change in their lifestyle.
Yeah. Now, do you find that not only are those clients, when they're coming to you and they start seeing those results, they're not only feeling the physical changes, but maybe there's some changes they're feeling emotionally?
Oh, yes, absolutely. You know, the thing with food, and, you know, I guess you could call them food type products that are on the market, because if you really look at, you know, what is on the market in our regular grocery stores, you really should only be eating about 20% of it. You know, the age-old rule of shopping the perimeter of the grocery store and then maybe picking up a few things in the middle still really holds true. So yes, they feel so much better because they're, you know, most women that come to me are really just thinking about calories and weight loss. That's their initial goal. But as the coach, as someone that, you know, is a nutritionist, is helping them with that, I'm looking at everything. For example, they may think that chicken, sweet potatoes, and broccoli is a great choice, and it is. But what I'm looking at is that the only thing that they're choosing every lunch and dinner? Because
that sounds boring.
Not only boring, but, you know, I want them to eat a wide variety of food, because that's how we cover our nutrient profile. And that's what makes us feel amazing, right? So it really all starts in the gut and putting in the, you know, the nutrition that we need. And then, you're going to start to lose weight, which is going to make you feel great. But you're not going to have the foggy headedness. You're not going to be totally exhausted. You're not going to be reaching for the coffee pot, you know, 4 times a day. So it's
oh, that afternoon malaise. Oh my gosh. It's a real thing.
It is. And, you know, there's more than one reason for it, which is why when we're talking about hormones today, which I'm so excited to do, we really, with all of my women and men that I have referred out for hormonal testing, we've addressed their nutrition first, because they go hand in hand.
100%. So before we kind of jump into the hormone replacement, I definitely want to give our listeners kind of just a little backstory. Chelsey and I, like I mentioned, we're friends. We've been friends for years. I'm so blessed to have her in my life. But we actually had sometimes, well, pre-COVID, we were having coffee dates and like once a month, because we're both busy. We're both working moms. We both run a business. And so we would just carve out a morning once a month to meet for coffee with our husbands and just have girl time. And so one morning we were having a chat and, you know, just like girls do, just kind of talking about things that we're experiencing. And at the time we were both feeling like some physical changes. And just to be completely honest and candid, you know, we were both experiencing things like loss of libido, or, you know, the menstrual cycle was changing. We were also I was feeling really foggy.
Me too. Very foggy.
I was forgetting things. And I'm normally not like that. I felt like even in the beginning of my day, 2 cups of coffee in, and I still felt out of it.
Yes, absolutely.
And my sleep was terrible. And I know I was telling Chelsey, like, I can't sleep, or I would sleep and then I'd wake up for like 3 hours staring at the ceiling.
Horrible.
Yeah. And then you wake up feeling even more off. So it was just a number of things that I felt like, okay, what is going on? And Chelsey, brought to my attention that it may be that, my hormones are off. And so I really wanted to have this conversation because she's a wealth of knowledge when it comes to hormone replacement therapy. She's done a ton of research, and she also can speak to this and her personal journey with it. So if you can maybe tell us a little bit about what you were experiencing and kind of what maybe triggered you to get that tested and look into some options.
Yeah, sure. So, I've actually been on some form of hormone replacement since I was about 30 years old, which is so young. And I initially found hormone replacement as a cure for my migraine headaches. I was someone that was getting a lot of migraines. 12 to 16 migraine days a month. It was absolutely debilitating, and had been to so many neurologists. Had done a lot of my own research, which was quite a while ago, so there wasn't as much out there. But through my own research and kind of when my headaches were happening, which was the week before my menstrual cycle was absolutely horrific, realized that, or had the idea that I really thought my progesterone levels were low. Had a very difficult time finding someone to treat me because I was so young. Had my progesterone tested and it was very low, and they still wouldn't treat me. Wow. Which was crazy. But I was able to find someone who's wonderful. And I have been on HCG injections timed a certain time with my cycle. Those injections help my ovaries make more of their own estrogen and progesterone. And I lived a very happy life for about 10 years, I would say, 10 to 12 years of that. And then, we hit the age that we are. I'm 43. And, last year I started to realize that things were shifting again. I was getting some headaches, although they were during my menstrual cycle this time. Okay. But I was also having a lot of the symptoms that you just described. I was tired and moody, and my anxiety was through the roof, and I wasn't sleeping as well. I had zero libido. And you guys, I have a wonderful marriage. This had nothing to do with my relationship.
It has nothing to do with your spouse.
My husband and I have been married for 15 years, and he is the greatest thing that ever happened to me. And that just wasn't an issue. It wasn't something that I had a problem with before. Very foggy headed, could not think of words. Like literally asked a therapist that I was seeing at the time because I felt so bad if I should see a neurologist because I thought I was getting early onset Alzheimer's. Like I was absolutely getting fearful that like I was losing it. I was used to being this very quick, very intelligent ICU nurse, you're
got
always
it going
on top of things. And I literally felt like I couldn't handle my life. No like zest for life, no self-motivation, which has never been a problem for me.
It never has.
No. So it was kind of like, what's going on? And I started this search and was trying to find doctors that would sort of look at the whole picture. I saw a functional medicine doctor, which I think is the greatest thing ever. If you really want a physician to treat your whole body, find a functional medicine doctor in your area, because they are wonderful at really assessing me. That doctor was with me for an hour and a half. It was a great experience. And at the end of that, she looked at me and she said, "Chelsey, you already know this is hormones." And I said, I had an idea, but I had the other doctor that was treating my hormones, and we were in the middle of getting my new levels. So luckily help was on the way. But it was, when I had my levels tested, my estrogen was low. So we added in some estrogen on top of my injections, and my testosterone was literally, they couldn't record it. It was so low, which was crazy. I always thought it was so ironic that the bodybuilder had no testosterone. I was
and you
a
still had amazing
bodybuilder,
results too. So that's impressive.
But I think that my testosterone levels were probably really good back then. I felt great in 2016. It was really just last year that everything kind of
came to a full stop.
Yes, just broke. I felt so bad. Yeah. So it's been a just wonderful blessing on everything in my life. I would say 4 weeks after the testosterone therapy started, I can remember I was driving in the car with my husband, and I don't know where we were going, Lowe's, who knows? But I remember looking over at him and just saying, I feel so good. Like so good. It was like my sister was asking me to explain what the result felt like. And I don't know if it was the same for you, but I felt like I had swallowed well-being. Like it was just like
that
radiating
sounds amazing.
off of me.
I want that.
Right? And don't we all want that? And, I always feel like it's a God moment when God puts challenges in your life. He does it to allow you to help other people with those same challenges.
Right.
And one of the things that's been amazing about me having all this hormone difficulty for, roughly 13 years now is I've gotten really good at recognizing it in other women. And so I've been able to take so many of my clients who were fixing their nutrition, we're getting good nutrition, and we're helping them get to a healthy weight. We're instilling all the lifestyle changes. But I'm able to see the ones that's just not quite enough.
Yeah.
And they really need to have their hormones optimized.
Now, one thing, I don't know if I had told you this, but when I started to feel that way, I know I had brought it up to my GYN. And obviously you are a nurse, so, you probably were more in tune to, wait a second, this is my hormones. But for somebody who's not a medical professional and,
Sure.
I don't have that education, bringing it up to my GYN, they immediately suggested I go back on birth control, which is not a need of ours because,
Yes.
we've done other things to prevent
that. Right.
that. But I didn't want to do that. My dad passed away at a very young age from a stroke. So I feel like I'm high risk to take anything along those lines. But I also felt like that can't be the answer.
Right.
So, I didn't take their advice and I'm glad I didn't. But why are they quick to push birth control?
Well, my honest opinion is not on the part of the doctor, but I think my honest opinion is money. And what's unfortunate about right now is I think the education for most physicians is funded by big pharma, right? And so you practice what you know. I don't even really fault them. I had the same issue with my regular OBGYN. He's an older gentleman who I love dearly. But when the first time I told him, I just have like no libido. And this was probably 2 years ago. I was 41.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, you're over 40. It was like, you've already had kids. You're over 40.
Like
Well,
that's normal.
like-
Just you don't need it anymore. You don't need a libido.
Right. So that
That ship
intimate
has sailed.
relationship with my husband, like that should just go away
Yeah.
over 40 or post children.
No,
Like,
we're still young.
heck no.
We're still kicking it over here.
yes. And the thing is, sex is certainly about procreation, but in a marriage, it's about so much more than that, right? I mean,
you
it's-
need that connection.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You need that intimacy and that connection. And I think, especially for men, it's where they really feel loved and for women as well. But, it hadn't changed on my husband's end. I was the one that had changed.
Yeah.
And I kind of felt like he was sort of having to suffer as well because of, kind of what was happening. So, the birth control pill, unfortunately, it's the Band-Aid for everything, right? Irregular cycles, birth control pill. Heavy bleeding, birth control pill. Like, it doesn't matter what bad PMS, whatever it is for you, clearly, low libido and all these other symptoms, birth control
and the
pill.
menstrual cycle was all over the place, and I think that maybe that was the
they were
reason
thinking
why.
it was going to regulate.
Maybe they thought that, and then also I felt like I was having maybe some changes with hair, and also, I work out probably not as much as you do, but I am a regular at the gym and I eat pretty clean and I plateaued. And then last year I started feeling like I did put on some weight.
I did too.
Which doesn't happen. I haven't
Right.
changed my weight in 15 years. I haven't fluctuated. And all of a sudden,
I've known you a long time.
yeah, my weight went up by like 10 or 12 pounds and it happened within like a month. And then it wouldn't go away. It was the weirdest thing.
Yes. And I think, for me, here I am, I'm a weight loss coach, right? I had gained 12 pounds. I thought it was 9, but when I went to the doctor, at the end, finally realized it was 12. I think I just stopped getting on the scale. But what was really frustrating for me was I'm a weight loss coach and a bodybuilder. It's literally my job to lose weight. And I know how to do it. And nothing was working. I was having to get my calories so low, which is not normal for me. And it just wasn't budging. And, it was amazing post the, hormone replacement when we really found my sweet spot. 6 of those 12 pounds literally fell off. I didn't even try. They just like poof, they were gone.
Right.
So, it was, that's a really frustrating thing. And I think for women, especially when we're talking about weight, oh my gosh, it's like bring on the guilt, the shame, all of it, right? And women are notoriously, what we do so often when there's something wrong, when we don't feel good, when we're gaining weight, when we have no libido, when we go inside our heads and say, what am I doing wrong?
Yeah.
Because I did that. Like, okay, I'm just going to eat cleaner. I'm just going to not have the treat meals that I normally have. I'm not going to drink any alcohol. Maybe I'm just, it's the wine. Like you start putting these things in your head, and certainly all of those things are important.
Right.
But just like you, all of those things had been in place for me for so long that had never been an issue. And all of a sudden, like, I'm up 12 pounds and I can't lose it. Like, what the heck is going on?
Yeah, because then you're getting even more frustrated. And if you are suffering from depression because of the hormones, that's probably going to put you in a deeper depression.
Absolutely.
And I know I felt frustrated because at the same time, my diet hadn't changed.
Nope.
And I started feeling even more anxious about it. I mean, it just snowballs.
It does. It all kind of wraps up into this big chaotic, cloud of, when it comes down to it, I just don't feel good.
Yeah.
And it's so hard, to pinpoint those particular symptoms that you have sometimes, because it's like all these vague things, it's things you can't measure. You're tired, your libido's low, your brain fog, and it's nothing that you can just go, oh, well, it was a 70 and now it's a 5. Like it is really important. That's probably going to be my biggest lesson to women today. And the thing I really want them to hear is, if you don't feel good, it's not in your head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. Well, I know we talked about libido a little bit, and I kind of want to touch on that a little bit more, if you don't mind.
Sure. It's the most important, probably one, when it comes to marriage.
I have to say, and on a scale from 1 to 10, let's say, 10 being everything is right where it needs to be.
Sure.
I feel like I was always at a consistent 10, and then all of a sudden, almost like it dropped off a cliff. Not necessarily went to like a 1, but I probably was at like a 4, and those were certain days where I felt, oh, I kind of feel normal today, or I kind of feel like I did before, but then it would just go away again. And it's like, had nothing to do with my husband.
Sure.
And again, these are things that can also affect men, but just from speaking from our perspective as women, it just felt off. It felt like I don't know, like it's not that I didn't want it. I didn't know what I wanted. I was just kind of there. You know what I mean? Like I just kind of felt like I was existing. And then with all the other things I was feeling at the same time, it also was very confusing to me because I wasn't quite sure, where did it go? What did I do? What am I not doing? Is there something else that's throwing me off? And then you also start to think, and we're still very young, and I know you said you started down this path at 30, that, oh my gosh, is this menopause? And, people don't realize this can start as early as in your 20s. Even though we're in our 40s, I don't want women to think just because they're not in their 40s, this can't affect them. Like you said, it could be 30. It can actually, I had looked it up, it can actually start in your 20s.
Sure.
So for me, it was, I would say last year is when it really started. I was 40 years old. I turned 41 this year. And then the weight gain probably made me also feel a little more kind of off and probably killed my libido even more, because you feel kind of crappy about yourself.
Like you don't want to present a present a body that you're not comfortable with.
Like,
to your husband. Present's probably a bad word. You don't present your body to your husband. Sorry, ladies.
Are you ready for the presentation?
You know what I mean? Like you're not as comfortable without clothes on. I know that was a bad choice of words. Sorry, ladies. Don't let the feminists come down on me. That's not what I meant. Not at all. He presents to you as well. Okay.
Yes. Present yourselves to one another. There you go.
Sure. Yeah. And I think for me, the libido drop off was more gradual through my 30s, but then it was then it just tanked. And, my husband and I are really open, and we have a good communicative relationship. And I would literally tell him, I just don't I want to want it.
Right.
I guess that's really what it comes down to. I want to have sex. I love that feeling. And it just wasn't there. And he was going, well, I kind of just thought it was me, which is, that's awful. That's not what it was at all. So it is really important if you're feeling these things, especially, it's usually a woman, I think, that has the libido issues more often. You have to talk to your spouse. Don't do it in the middle of sex or right when you're turning him down for sex, but maybe have a really good conversation about kind of what's going on with you, because that's really important. Right. Yeah.
I agree. So how long would you say from when you started the hormonal, the HRT, when did you actually start feeling like your libido was getting back on track?
So, they started to tweak things with me. I didn't do everything at once. It wasn't like, okay, here, because I had something tweaked with my thyroid as well, but they didn't add like my thyroid medicine, my estrogen, my testosterone all at one time. I'm not saying that some doctors don't do that. It's just not how it went with me.
Yeah.
And for me, the libido, curing part of it was definitely the testosterone. I use pellet therapy. There's many different ways to deliver testosterone. You can do pellets, you can do creams, you can do oral, you can do injections. I happen to use pellets. And she told me it would take, about 4 to 6 weeks for me to really feel a difference. And that was definitely it. But the thing with hormone therapy that's really important to remember, and it goes against the grain of what we're used to in, American medicine, is you're not going to walk into a doctor, get your levels tested, get a prescription, and be fixed. There's no like pre-packaged, if your levels are this, then you need that. Most doctors are going to start low and slow, which is what they should do, and increase you until you feel better. They're trying to optimize you. There isn't like a specific target number that you should be. Which is what happens so often to women. They go to the doctor to get their hormones tested, and what does the doctor say? You're within normal range.
Yeah.
Right. So even if the range is 20 to 250, if you're 20, well, maybe your body doesn't want to be 20. Maybe your body likes to be 70. Yeah. So, it is definitely, it takes time. So I tell all of my, my girls, give it 6 months, like of letting, reporting back to your physician, letting them tinker with, whatever they're doing and getting you really to your good stuff. But yeah, the testosterone, like within 4 weeks, it was like, hello.
Right. I almost felt like that somebody gave me that extra shot of espresso. Yeah. I feel like, oh, I can see again. Right. Like my eyes felt more awake. My body felt more awake.
Sure.
And yeah, the libido came back.
Like we're rocking. Yeah.
I probably passed that 10. I know 10. I said it was too. The max, but I'm like,
I was rolling TMI, at a good 15
sorry guys,
for
but
a while. Yeah. Yeah.
And Tommy was not complaining.
No, my husband either. No way. He was very happy.
So I actually don't do the pellet. So I'm actually on a topical cream is what I use for the tea. So what are the benefits of the pellet? Or is there a difference there with
Sure.
With the pellet?
So, pellet therapy, believe it or not, has been around for a really long time. Like I want to say the early 1900s, if I read correctly. It went away when the birth control pill came out. So it's kind of interesting that it really, if you look at the history of what's happened with hormones over the last 100 years, the introduction of the birth control pill, we need to do a whole episode on that because I really feel like many of the issues that women are having now hormonally, younger women in their, 20s, 30s, early 40s, are because we were placed on the birth control pill as very young girls, right? Like not even fully developed brain yet. And now I just forgot your question that you asked me.
The pellet. Yeah, because I'm on the cream. So I'm curious to know versus the topical, what is the difference? Are there other benefits of the pellet? Do you feel like it's stronger?
Well, I have not personally been on the cream. I've only done the pellets, but I have upsides and downsides to them. So I will share that for sure. So pellet therapy is when they take it's literally a pellet. It looks like maybe a little bit bigger than a grain of rice. They make a small incision. It's usually somewhere around your hip or, buttock region where you have plenty of fat there. Yeah. Very tiny incision. They insert that pellet. They close it. You don't even need a stitch. It's such a small incision. It's a little bit, uncomfortable. Like I would say it's uncomfortable for maybe 2 or 3 days and then you don't even know it's there. Now sometimes with men, they'll use multiple pellets and I've heard some of them say, I kind of feel like I'm sitting on rice, right? But with women, it's usually just one pellet. Okay. So the benefits of the pellet therapy is that, it takes about 6 weeks to kind of hit your height of absorption and where your level is going to stay, but then it's very consistent. There's no like swings with it. It stays really consistent. When you start to fall back down is when you're going to go back to your physician because you'll know. She told me you will know when it starts to wear off, and she was not lying. But that is when they sort of base it on when are you going to get your next one, right? Which leads me into, honestly, for me, the only downside of pellets for me that I've had. So pellet therapy wears off based on your cardiac output, right?
Okay.
So people that exercise more or are, athletes or just have a higher metabolism, certainly like me and probably like you, we burn them off faster. So, I went the first time, I think I went 16 weeks and went way too long. Like I felt like poo by the time I went and got another pellet.
Yeah.
So then we did 12 weeks, which is what they say is the minimum. They say 3 to 5 months they should last you. But it's just not quite, like I'm finding it's lasting about 8 and I'm starting to already feel a decline. So I actually have an appointment with my physician today to discuss that with her, to see, we increased my dose last time, hoping that might help. I'm on DIM, which is a supplement to help your testosterone not convert to estrogen. So, we're trying some other things, but there's some women that have pellets and they, go every 3 months, every 4 months, every 5 months, and they don't have that sort of early fall off. So, from what I've read, the injections are actually the ones that give you sort of a more, you don't have the drops because you're usually injecting yourself once a week. But the downside to that is many people aren't comfortable, injecting themselves. It doesn't bother me, but I do remember when I was first doing injections of HCG, I couldn't do my own.
I couldn't do that.
Right. But you couldn't, but I would say you would get used to it and how bad you felt off hormones. So I really believe that anyone can figure it out. And guess what? I promise you, ladies or husbands, if you're not feeling good, your spouse, for the benefit, will do those injections for you. My husband would be happy to take a needle, to my backside and get the wife back that he knows and loves.
So Tommy takes the injections.
Okay.
And one day he's like, "Hey, do you want to try it? Do you want to actually stick it in my rear?"
Oh,
the needle. Let's be clear about that. And I was like, "Yeah, let me try it." I couldn't do it.
Oh yeah.
I was like, I can't. I went to, and I've given Dylan his shots for his Dupixent, but that's in his arm, and it's a much smaller needle. I feel like this one seemed a little aggressive. But you're a nurse. I'm sure you've done this a million times.
So I don't know. Are the injections for Tommy, are they intramuscular? Is it a long needle, or are they sub-Q, which is just into the fat tissue?
It's a pretty long needle.
Yeah. So I had to do progesterone therapy, actual progesterone injections when I was pregnant with my second.
Okay.
And my husband had to give them to me because they were in my backside. It was a very strange angle. And the medium for the injections was sesame oil. So they were really, really thick. So it took forever. It took forever
Hot mic.
It took forever to, get the actual medicine in my backside. And Brandon, like you, is very squeamish when it comes to that stuff.
I didn't know that. That's fine.
Oh, he's so squeamish. But here's the thing. We all rise to the occasion. And if Tommy really needed you to do it, if it was
I'd close my eyes.
You would have figured it out. So I don't want people to shy away from injections because they think they can't do it, or it's, you will get it done. Like you'll figure it out, or you'll have somebody that can do it for you or whatever.
Right. He's a champ about it. I mean, he's fine doing it. He just wanted to give me, I guess a laugh and giving it a try. He's like, "Hey, come on, you want to give it a try? Go for it." And I thought, yeah, sure. I couldn't do it. But yeah, he's been doing the shots and he swears by it. He feels a huge difference as well. But he didn't suffer from some of the things that I was experiencing. And I think probably the mood changes aside from libido is probably the other thing that I think can also affect the marriage or the energy in your home. And for me, it wasn't necessarily depression, but I was very anxious, and that uneasiness when someone's anxious around you all the time, you feel that. And I know even he would tell me, because we sit across from each other in the office, he's like, "What are you anxious about?" And I wouldn't even say a word. He's like, "I can feel it. Your anxiety from across the desk. Yes. I can feel it. Yes. And you're making me anxious." Yes. And I'm like, "I'm so sorry. I can't even control it." I would go work out or, I don't know, have a glass of wine, which probably wasn't a good idea, or, just do anything to possibly reset my mind. But it was everywhere. It wasn't just my mind. I could feel it in my body. Sure. And it has helped me with my anxiety. I don't really understand how that, kind of brought everything back to where it needed to be. I'm not saying I don't have days where I feel anxious, but I don't feel it all the time. Sure. I literally would wake up feeling this way and go to bed feeling that way too. Yeah. But I did read a lot of women suffer from depression as well, or have bouts of depression with I don't know, is that something you felt that you maybe experienced?
Well, absolutely. Yeah, I think I definitely had a little bit of depression. I mean, it's when you don't feel good all the time, that kind of makes you depressed, right? Like, and I would even notice, the times that we've all had it as mothers where like you kind of overreact to things and Dragon Lady comes out and you're yelling at your kids. And then we have this like out of body.
We do that?
Yeah. Don't interview my children. We have these out of body moments, or at least I certainly did, where I would almost, it was like my consciousness, my real self was listening to my crazy brain scream at my kids. And I was like, this is not right. Like, what's going on? I shouldn't be overreacting and yelling at them. And just, when you're constantly feeling stress, your husband feels it, your children feel it, your whole house feels it. Yeah. So yeah, it's definitely, the testosterone really helped me out with a lot of those things as well.
I think yours sounds like maybe you had, probably a faster turnaround from when you had the initial pellet. I think the cream, if anyone's looking, kind of comparing, I think the cream takes a little bit longer. They told me it would take probably about 90 days. I did react to it much sooner than that, probably 2 months, maybe 60 days. So it wasn't quite as quick as 30 days, but I do like the fact that it's, I can take it with me, if I'm traveling or something like that. I do like the topical, and maybe I'll try the pellet. I'm definitely open to it. But I also take the progesterone in a pill form.
You do oral.
Yeah. So I do the oral for the progesterone. I actually don't take any estrogen. Are you taking estrogen? Is that what you mentioned?
I use an estrogen cream.
A cream. Okay.
Yeah. And then I'm not doing any progesterone. I told you I was on, or I'm still on HCG injections, which the only thing most people hear about that is that crazy diet, that HCG diet. Ladies, that's not what this is. HCG is not magic. It will not magically help you lose weight, but it will increase your progesterone if you're a cycling woman. HCG won't work if you're not cycling anymore. Okay. But so I'm on HCG for that. And then they also added in, because mine was like, it wasn't great when I first had it checked, but it was okay. We added in chasteberry, which is an herb that also helps to increase progesterone. And I know it works because I took it very faithfully for 3 months. And when we rechecked my levels, they were the highest progesterone levels I've ever had, which was wonderful because progesterone is like your chill hormone. It's the one that like smooths out the edges.
Yeah.
Right?
Pour me a cup of that.
Sure. It's like the Ativan of hormones, ladies. It's really good. It's the glass of wine. It's that. Yeah. Right. So yeah, they're all really important. And like you said, there's so many methods of delivery. This is not one size fits all. It's not like you have to do injections if you're just scared to death of them. Right. So it really, there is a way to do this for everyone that needs it. And guess what? Some of you guys are like, this is not me at all. Like, and lucky you, not everyone needs hormone replacement, but I think so many, especially women, need it that don't get it, especially testosterone therapy, because what do you think of when you initially say testosterone?
I think of a man,
right? Manly, hairy, bodybuilders, big muscles, things happening to your genital area. We think all of these things that are kind of these stereotypes in our head, but most women don't realize that women have testosterone. We just have less of it than men. Men have estrogen. They just have less. And we both need both things in different quantities to feel great.
So it really needs to be tailored to you personally.
Yes.
So did they take a blood test, I guess, when you initially went? Okay.
Yes. It's really important to do your blood work. And ladies, this is a part about blood work that I really want you to listen to. If you're a cycling woman, if you're still having a menstrual cycle, the time that you get your blood work is very, very important. It's not important for your testosterone level. You can do that any day of the week. But if you are cycling, you need to have your labs drawn roughly, if you're a 28-day cycle lady, on day 21 of your period. So roughly a week before your period starts. So if you're someone that cycles every 33 days, great. Back up 7 days and do it on, what would that be, day 26, I think. So that part's really important because when we're getting an estrogen and progesterone level, we need it timed at a particular day because they change. Your estrogen levels they kind of peak and valley the first half and then they do the same the second half. So does your progesterone. So if if a doctor is taking your blood and you're a cycling woman and they're not asking you what day of your cycle it is, you are not in the right place, ladies. Right. You are not in the right place. If you are postmenopausal and not cycling anymore, doesn't matter. Or if you're someone who's having just erratic bleeding all over the place that you can't even really, chart and keep track of, you're just going to have to do it on a certain day and kind of try and figure it out from there. But that's really important.
So would you recommend that, what type of physician, because I see like a wellness, I go to a wellness center, so I don't see my GYN for this or my GP, but who would you recommend if I'm a listener and I'm looking into maybe possibly getting tested, where should I go?
Yeah. So, that's honestly been my biggest challenge with all of this. I see a couple different physicians because the physicians that have seen me for 13 years are in Nebraska and I live here in Virginia. When I needed testosterone therapy, she was a nurse practitioner. She's amazing. Who was seeing me said, I do pellets. You obviously don't live in Nebraska. So we found someone in my area who happens to be an OBGYN. I have not found, although it's funny, they're both OBGYNs that do my hormones, but I have not found on the whole that is usually the best place to go.
Yeah.
There are some amazing exceptions. I see 2 of them and they're wonderful. But you need to make sure that you're speaking with someone who is not just going to look at lab values and say, you're within normal range.
Yeah.
So the questions for the doctor need to be, do you treat symptoms? Do you treat, your patients until they are in their optimal range?
Okay.
Are they looking at you as a person and how you feel, not just what your blood work says? Because it needs to be both. I mean, certainly your blood work is very important, but how you feel is the most important. So there has to definitely be a conversation there. Functional medicine doctors tend to be a really good place to start.
Okay.
There is a lot of anti-aging doctors like like you see. Some of them are great. Some of them not so great. Most of those places are not taking insurance.
Mine's out of pocket.
Right, right. So mine, because I see an OBGYN, all of my lab testing is paid for.
Okay.
But I do have to pay out of pocket for my hormones, which again, whole nother podcast.
Yeah.
But
it's worth it. It's an investment in yourself.
Yes. And when I tell you guys that my husband would literally sell our house and move to something much smaller to keep me on these things, I'm not lying.
Wow, you must be doing something fantastic.
It's just
the libido is off the charts, people.
Right. And, and the thing is, the libido is an amazing part of it, but it's all of it. It's losing that brain fog. It's feeling good about yourself. It's having that sense of well-being. It's sleeping well through the night. It's all of the things that just sort of, make that work. So absolutely functional medicine. Look into some of the, anti-aging doctors, some doctors that this is what they do, right?
Yeah.
Like not the weight loss doctor that does this on the side necessarily. I'm not saying he's not great, but really, feel like you can ask some questions because you're going to be spending your money on this. And, those need to be the main questions. What kind of hormone replacement do you use? I'm a huge proponent of bioidentical hormones because bioidentical hormone therapy is the exact same chemical makeup as what you make in your body. If you're using something synthetic, like most women know about Premarin, that's a synthetic estrogen, that estrogen has been tweaked a little bit, and it's been tweaked so that the pharmaceutical company can put a patent on it and sell it. You cannot legally patent a natural substance, which is why, in my opinion, bioidenticals do not get they don't get their due. They don't get what they deserve because it's just not a huge money-making area. Thus, you have to pay out of pocket. There's also some fantastic, don't feel like you have to see a physician. There is wonderful nurse practitioners and physician assistants that this is what they do and they're great. And I've had to seek out many of them because I have clients that live all over the country.
Yeah.
So one of the things I do is I make phone calls and I get in touch with people to try and find my clients somebody that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's, I've had a few conversations since I actually started the testosterone and the progesterone. I'm actually not taking any estrogen right now.
Yet? Yeah, you don't need it yet.
I didn't need it. But I've had conversations with other young women, some of them much younger than myself, that are already experiencing a lot of these things and were completely unaware that they needed to have this checked, or it was even an option for them.
Yes.
Because like you mentioned, when they thought testosterone, they thought, oh, well, I thought that was for men.
Right.
Like for my husband, I would have never thought of that for myself. I just thought this is something that, I'm getting older and that's
too
what happens.
Young, right?
Yeah.
I'm
or
only
I'm too
33.
Young.
I'm too young to be going through perimenopause at this point.
Now, do you, And this is something I'm not sure of, and I don't know if this is something that maybe you know. Is this something that if you haven't had children would still affect you?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Because I know if they're in their early 30s, they may also think, well, I haven't even had kids, so I probably shouldn't even look into that.
Sure. I mean, my progesterone tanked in between my two children. I 1,000% blame it on a Mirena IUD, like 1,000%. I think I had an issue before the IUD, but I think that that IUD is a synthetic progesterone based IUD. I think it just absolutely, I did not have the knowledge back then that I have now, or I would not have made that decision. But yes, I think I truly believe that most women are experiencing these things younger and younger, like I said, because of using hormonal birth control from a very young age. It's, unfortunately, the question needs to be, if you're having issues dealing with your menstrual cycle or any of that reproductive area, the question needs to be, what's the problem? Not, let's put you on the pill to mask it. Like, let's regulate your symptoms. Like, symptom regulation is not what we're looking for. We're looking for, what is the problem? We need to fix it.
Okay. I know you mentioned also, I wanted to just kind of, because I know our listeners may not know, was it HRC or HCG?
So,
what does that stand for?
HCG is human chorionic gonadotropin, big long name. So thus they call it HCG. So HCG is the hormone that most women know that it, well, maybe they don't know, but they're going to know. When you take a pregnancy test, when you pee on the stick, what that pregnancy test is detecting is HCG.
Okay.
So we all have a teeny tiny bit of it all the time. When you get pregnant, it goes through the roof, right? It's what we test to see how far along you are. One of the downsides to being on HCG therapy is if every time I'd go to the doctor, or if I had the flu or whatever, I would have to say, I'm not pregnant.
Okay.
Because your pregnancy test is going to say that I am, but I'm not. The difference is my level of HCG in my blood. So if they just did a urine test and it was just a yes or no, it would say I was pregnant. If they checked my level, they would realize that my level was quite low, actually. But it can trigger that pregnancy test, ladies. So HCG, it was when we first realized how low my progesterone was, we had to do a few things. I was having a lot of fibroids and cysts. That's very uncomfortable. And women, those are not normal either. I don't care what your doctor tells you. It's not normal to have cysts and fibroids, especially if they're really painful. I was put on progesterone therapy for a month to shrink those, because I was told if they gave me HCG right away, that those could actually grow, and that wouldn't be a good thing. So they treated those first. Again, we always treat the problem. And then they put me on HCG injections. And we did try the progesterone for my headaches as well, but the HCG really worked well for me. My body, it increased my estrogen a little bit, which was great. It was a little low. But man, the change in my progesterone was it was great. And I was still cycling. I could still, this was in between my two children. I could still get pregnant with no problem. It was, it was a great thing. It was really great.
My next question was I was going to ask about whether or not it would affect women who are trying to get pregnant.
Sure. Yes, the way it would affect you is it would help you, because, progesterone is the pregnancy hormone. Like, your progesterone levels go sky high in pregnancy. And it's honestly why a lot of women feel great when they're pregnant, because, like I said, it's that chill hormone, right? It's one that makes you feel really good. It is imperative to a healthy baby, to that fetus. Progesterone is really, really big, which, my fear that I expressed to my doctor that was treating me was, so we already know I have low progesterone levels. I'm on this HCG. I'm going to get pregnant. I won't be using the HCG anymore while I'm pregnant, because I won't be cycling, right? It has to be timed with your cycle. What if I don't have enough progesterone to sustain my pregnancy? And this amazing doctor, his name is Dr. Thomas Hildress, by the way. He's in Omaha, Nebraska at the St. Paul VI Institute. He's a phenomenal man. He said, well, we're going to check your progesterone levels. Like, as soon as we get a positive pregnancy test, which had to be done for me via blood because of the HCG, we're going to immediately check your progesterone level. And then we're going to check it every 2 weeks throughout your pregnancy. And we're going to supplement you as needed. And that's how I ended up on those progesterone injections throughout my whole pregnancy. I had a very healthy pregnancy. This is the other part of it, ladies, that's amazing about progesterone therapy. many of us suffer from postpartum depression. You know, we have a baby and a few weeks later we get the baby blues, which is very normal, but some of us get a little more than the baby blues. Like we get a full-blown depression. It's honestly, that was the first time in my life after my first child that I had that. And it took a long time to get it fixed. They put me on antidepressants. I saw, you know, a therapist for a little bit, and it did eventually resolve, but I was really fearful of that with my second pregnancy as well. And, you know, again, when I spoke to this amazing physician about it, he said, well, we treat postpartum depression with progesterone because what happens is, you know, through pregnancy, these progesterone levels are climbing and climbing. You deliver the baby, and what happens? They plummet. That's the natural way of it. And for some of us, we just don't, we either plummet too low or we just don't tolerate it as well. So, you know, what they told me was, you know what it feels like to have, you know, the depression. When you feel like the symptoms start creeping in, give us a call. And I did. And they, you know, immediately dosed me with progesterone I had. And I only had to call them one other time and I didn't have a stitch of it. Like literally, I gave the injection and the next day I felt better. So it's, and again, we're talking about a bioidentical hormone, something that your body already makes anyway. I wasn't on antidepressants for 6 months, which I'm not dogging antidepressants by any means. They play a vital role. If you're on them and they are working for you, great. They are sometimes the answer for things, but they aren't the only answer.
Right.
And I think so many women, like you said, were given birth control and were given antidepressants.
As a Band-Aid.
A Band-Aid. Instead of saying, well, why are you feeling all of these things?
Yeah.
Like, is this just a life stress that we need to help you with some antidepressants to get through? Is it a chemical imbalance in your brain that you really need an antidepressant? Or is it your hormones?
Yeah. I would say if I could go back in time, I wish I had known these things because my first pregnancy I had, and not really with my second pregnancy, but my first pregnancy, the postpartum depression, I felt like, boom, hit me like a ton of rocks.
Like a ton of rocks.
And as a young mom, I was completely unaware. And I didn't have anybody who was knowledgeable in this that could maybe, you know, give me some words of wisdom and say, hey, you know, this is an option. So, you know, I know that we have some younger listeners, younger married couples that haven't started their family yet. So I think that's really important to share because, you know, also there's a shame in it too. A lot of people don't want to tell anyone, even their doctor, or just even recognize, hey, I'm not okay, you know, and I'm feeling postpartum depression. Am I a bad mom? Oh my gosh, is this normal?
We start the shame game. Yeah. Absolutely. And you know, shame and guilt and shame. We just heave it on ourselves.
The beautiful cycle of shame and guilt. But yeah, I would say most people that I do know that actually did maybe seek out some medical attention, antidepressants were the route that their physician decided to take. And again, you know, if it's something that's necessary, and I'm sure, like you said, it plays a vital role, but I don't think that's the ultimate solution if they're, you know, like you mentioned with the progesterone, if that's really what needs to be remedied, which I think for me as a young mom, that's probably what I needed at the time. My hormones were completely out of whack. And that's actually when I started getting migraines immediately after that pregnancy. I felt that. And then the migraines with the aura, the nausea, everything. I had never suffered from migraines prior to. So that clearly, looking back, was definitely something with my hormones.
Yes. The link between migraines in women and especially progesterone, but headaches, estrogen as well, is massive. And that was the part that I was so frustrated about. I remember having a neurologist, I was talking to him, who I love, by the way. Back when I was having all these headaches, you know, I was charting all of my headaches and realizing it's all in line with my menstrual cycle. The week before my cycle was hell week. I had a headache every day. And I remember him saying, well, why don't you just go on that birth control pill where you only have periods 3 months a year or 4 months a year? Because then you'll only deal with it, you know, 4 months a year. And I was like, how is that going to fix anything?
Right.
Like, I don't want to deal with this 4 times a year. I don't want to deal with this at all. This is not, something is not right. Like, it just... But, you know, again, he was reaching into his toolbox. And that's the thing. I'm not shaming physicians that don't know how to utilize this.
No, not at all.
You use the toolbox you have. What I'm hoping is that, you know, over time, and this is getting so much more prevalent and so much easier to find practitioners, is that it's going to be in more people's toolbox. Yeah.
I hope so. And I hope this is really helpful to women who are maybe, and you don't even have to experience all of these things. Just to kind of, I know we had mentioned a few things that we experienced individually, and
give them the list.
Yeah, I mean, buckle up. Actually, you guys, listen up. If you have any of these, and you're unsure as to why, and it's not because maybe you had a wild weekend and you're tired, but any one of these could be a potential sign that you may need to have your hormones checked. So difficulty sleeping at night, which I know I suffered from, and I think Chelsey, you had mentioned you were as well. Decreased muscle strength, which I had asked you, I wouldn't necessarily say it was decreased muscle strength, but my workout, I feel like I would work out and then my recovery was terrible and I was in so much pain for days.
Yes.
And my legs felt like lead.
Yes.
Would you say that's a
huge indicator of low testosterone?
Okay.
Huge indicator. I had the same thing. My recovery was terrible. I had more injuries in 2019 than I've had ever as an athlete. Ever. So yeah, I just could not recover. I was having an issue with lots of joints, lots of tendons.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just don't feel good. You're achy, you're sore, you're fatigued longer than you should be. You do leg day and it takes you a week to recover instead of, 3 or 4 days to recover, whatever it is. But yeah, that's a big one for sure.
And I didn't know that. Actually, I thought maybe I was overdoing it, or I actually
just getting old.
Yeah, I thought maybe I'm overdoing. Maybe I need to scale back, or reduce sexual desire, which I think we both
we've
said.
covered that.
We covered that one, and we're definitely out of that one. We're good.
Yeah. Yay.
Exhaustion, low energy or fatigue.
Huge.
Weight gain.
We talked about that.
Yes, and I guess it notes particularly around the stomach area or midsection. I guess is that would you say?
I think if it's an estrogen issue, yes, you tend to see it more around the stomach and midsection. Mine wasn't really put there. That's not where I put my weight anyway. I put my weight in my through my hips and thighs, and my weight gain I kind of felt was the pattern of it was pretty standard for me. Yeah.
I kind of felt like mine was all over, like a puffiness.
Oh, yeah, like a layer.
Yeah.
Yeah, almost like
my
a layer.
Face,
yeah.
my arms. I was like, what is happening?
What is happening?
Thinning of hair, which I know I've experienced with this, the changes that I've experienced with my hormones. I felt like my hair wasn't just, it didn't have that same luster and thick and healthy flow. It just, I don't know. It looked dead. Really sad. Reduced mental clarity and difficulty concentrating.
That was massive for me.
That foggy brain.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, that feeling of I used to be so sharp. I was so on top of it. I was, and now you're in your head going like, why can't I can't even run my life.
Yeah. And you know what? Actually, just to kind of go down a rabbit hole a little bit, I had a few people that actually said, oh, maybe you should look into like Adderall or Vyvanse.
Yeah. Well, look, I remember asking, who was I asking? Probably that same therapist. Like, can you get ADHD as an adult? Because I would feel like I was so scatterbrained. And that is the opposite. My normal is like, the blinders are always on and I don't see, what's going on around me because I'm so focused. Yeah. I remember asking about that too.
Because I thought, gosh, and we both are like the ultimate multitaskers. We're like,
absolutely.
More things for the list? Sure, throw it on. Drier skin. Did you experience that? Dry skin?
A little, but my skin is I definitely have more oil now that the hormones have been replaced. I'm not oily, which some women will have a hard time with. I think not a lot, but some women do get a little oily with the testosterone therapy, but my feeling was I'm getting older, so I don't mind a little extra oil. Yeah. But it wasn't like oh my gosh, my skin's so dry.
Okay.
Yeah.
This one, earmuffs if you have kids in the car, but vaginal dryness.
Yeah. And I didn't have this one either. I don't think you did.
No, that's not something I felt like was an issue.
But this one is such an issue for women because vaginal dryness leads to pain with intercourse. And you guys, I had a really good friend. She and her husband, who are amazing and wonderful and have a great relationship and have been married for 25 years and they're BFFs, right? Yeah. She shared with me that they hadn't had sex in 7 months. Wow. Because it felt like razor blades.
Oh my gosh.
When they were because the skin, your vaginal skin, ladies, it will naturally atrophy, which means it thins out as you get older. Well, when you do that and then you couple it with vaginal dryness, that's not a good feeling, right?
Really painful.
And again, she had asked her regular doctors about this, and
What was
her
their
doctor's
recommendation?
response, this killed me. She was so mad. Her doctor, who was a young female, told her to go on more dates with her husband.
I'm sorry, what?
Go on more dates with your husband.
And that's going to cure vaginal dryness.
That's going to cure the razor blade feeling of intercourse. Are you kidding me? Like when she told me, I immediately gave her the name of my doctor here. And I was like, you are making an appointment. Like, this is not okay for you. This is not okay for your husband. Like if you are having a physical symptom that is preventing intercourse in a marriage, ladies and gentlemen, because gentlemen have an issue too. It may not be vaginal dryness.
There are other things.
But gentlemen, there's issues that
That's
you
another
have
podcast.
as well, right? You need to go seek help for that.
Yeah.
Because that is not an acceptable, that should never be acceptable. Okay.
I cannot believe that.
Yes.
That almost sounds like
like a movie, right? Like a TV show.
It does. It sounds like
I know.
Like a comedy, you know,
Yes.
like I can't believe that somebody actually went to medical school to tell somebody else, just go on a few more dates. It'll cure your...
this was an OBGYN. This is someone that's their field, right?
Concerning.
So it's crazy,
That's
right?
concerning.
If that happens to you, find a new doctor.
Yes. Red flag. So menstrual cycles gradually ending.
Sure. So, that's a normal part of aging for women. We are all going to go through menopause eventually. But here's the deal, guys. Menopause should not be hell on earth, right? And for most women, once menopause happens, and that is the ceasing of your menstrual cycle, it's not hell on earth anymore. But that perimenopausal time where your cycles are changing, where you're maybe not as regular, where your bleeding changes, that's all things to pay attention to. And that's all signals that your hormones are shifting. Doesn't mean you absolutely need hormone replacement. But if that's happening in addition to some of these other symptoms, then consider that hormones might be in need.
And I had actually I read and I had actually been told as well by a physician that the perimenopause can start as early as early 30s.
Yeah, it really can.
For some women, I actually know somebody who had a family member, a girlfriend of mine. I think she had like 2 of her aunts that are much older now, but they actually started menopause in their late 20s, like aggressively.
Getting perimenopausal.
Perimenopausal in their late 20s.
Sure.
So, I think
not common, but it can happen. Right.
But I do think it's kind of a common misconception that people think that this is something that happens late 40s, early 50s.
Sure.
And, if you start feeling that, why suffer?
Why suffer?
Why wait till you're 50 to treat it?
Absolutely.
Moodiness, anxiety, or depression, which I know we both experienced most of those, if not all 3. But I also think people think maybe they're moody just because of life
or whatever. And that's where you have to take a good look at yourself. Nobody knows you better than you. If, like I had a client just yesterday that I met with who, we're doing her nutrition. But she told me, we had a brief conversation about hormones in our session prior. And she said, I'm crying all the time. And I was like, that's not normal. Like if your moodiness is to the point that you're going into tears, just randomly for no reason. If your moods are swinging like crazy, if you only feel good for 1 week out of your menstrual cycle, or you never feel good, it's just something you sort of have to assess for yourself. But I mean, certainly there's reasons in life that we're going to be depressed and, anxious and moody. If you lose a loved one, there's a reason to have a depression there that's not hormonally related.
Right.
But if you're moody and anxious and you don't know why.
And this year, I think maybe if let's say a woman is starting to experience a lot of these changes right now, this year may have actually masked that. And they may have thought, oh, I'm feeling this way because of COVID, the COVID-15, or I'm depressed because of I can't go out with my friends. When they may, if you're still feeling this and things are moving on the up and up, especially that we're going into a new year, really you should probably take a step back and see your physician, because I have heard people say some of these things they believe were as a result of corona. So, but inability to lose weight despite a healthy diet and lifestyle, which I mean,
yes, me too. Huge indicator.
It's so frustrating too. So even if you are doing the right things, like you said, eating right, exercising, you've had some of the people that you've worked with.
Sure. Myself and people I work with. And look, if you're somebody who you feel like you have all these things, but you're living on a processed food diet, the first thing you need to change is what you put in your mouth. Like your nutrition needs to 1,000% be on point because your nutrition really builds your gut or kills your gut. And your gut really plays a humongous role in your hormones.
Right.
So those are the things you need to fix first. It's not always just jumping straight to HRT, and which is why I love functional medicine, because they're going to look at your whole person, right? If you're eating McDonald's 4 times a week, if a Hardee's biscuit is your daily breakfast, like there's things that you can do to help your body make its own. We certainly want to look at nutrition and wellness and lifestyle things first.
Right.
But if you have those things in place and they're pretty darn solid and you're still having these issues, okay, now we need to look elsewhere, right? So, yeah.
So muscle and joint pain, which I kind of feel like we touched on with the decreased muscle strength. And I think, that's pretty much everything.
It covers pretty much everything.
Unless there's anything else that you thought of that I didn't include.
I think everything I had is on that list.
Fantastic.
maybe adding some migraines in there, because a lot of women do suffer for that. So add that in. But that's
definitely
a pretty comprehensive
and
list.
That's something that that started for me in my 20s after I had Brandon. I was only 21, and that's when that started for me. But I would have never thought at that age, and no one brought it to my attention either. So I was completely in the dark. I just thought, I actually didn't even know it was a migraine. I thought it was a terrible headache, and I couldn't see it in my left eye. For a second there, I thought I was having a stroke. I was like, what the hell? So if anyone else is experiencing that, migraines, that also can be really debilitating.
Huge trigger with hormones, migraines.
So I loved having this time with you, but I want everyone else that's listening to be able to reach out to you, especially if they are looking to kickstart their wellness.
Sure.
The new year's around the corner.
Yes.
Obviously, you can start now, but I know a lot of people are motivated for a new year, and we all want to peace out on 2020.
Start now. Start right now.
So
Absolutely.
Don't hesitate. Start now. Reach out to Chelsey, but tell everyone where they can find you.
Yes, so many avenues to find me. I'm on Instagram at Chelsey Creswell. I'm on Facebook, same Chelsey Creswell. But you can also find me with my company, which is KK Wellness Consulting. So our website is www.kkwellnessconsulting.com. And we are at KK Wellness on Instagram as well. So you can find us anywhere. Please reach out to me, DM our company. Be more than happy to talk with you guys, whether that's just a consult of, hey, do I need a nutrition coach? Maybe I need to be directed to somebody with hormones. But yeah, I would love to chat with anyone that I can help live an amazing, joy-filled life, because that is what hormone replacement did for me. It gave me back my joy.
Mm-hmm. Who doesn't want a joy-filled life? So you can actually work with anyone across the U.S. They're not limited to Virginia, right?
I can work with anyone in the whole world. Okay. We have clients. I've had clients in Italy. I've had clients in Japan. We have clients in a lot of different countries. The beautiful part of COVID for our company is we've been 100% virtual for a few years now, but now everyone really understands what that means. Yeah. That's the beauty of the internet is I can help anyone anywhere. Yeah. Yeah.
And how long do you work with your clients?
It just depends. I would say the average client stays with us about 8 months, but it really depends on how much weight you have to lose. We are not a diet company. I'm not going to put you on a diet until you hit your goal weight and then take you off the diet. I'm going to teach you how to eat for the rest of your life. For a while, you're going to eat in a calorie deficit so that you lose weight, but it's not going to be a crazy one. We don't like the big swings. Most women, the mistakes they make with dieting are they're inconsistent. That's probably the biggest one. Consistency is huge, and that's where your coach comes in. Yeah. But number 2 is they diet way too hard, and they do something that is not sustainable. And then what happens? After a few weeks, you're either starving or you screw up and you have pizza, and there's this big swing of forget it, I can't do this. Yeah. So yeah, I would say the average client is with us about 8 months, but if you only have 10 or 15 pounds to lose, maybe it's going to be 3 or 4 months. Yeah. It's really until you are at your maintenance weight, whatever that is, for you. And we don't decide that, by the way, ladies. I don't give you a goal weight. You're going to tell me when you're at your goal weight. You're going to tell me when you feel good in your body and you're at peace. That's what it's all about. Yeah. So yeah, it could be 5 months. I just had a client that was with me 2 years, but she lost 80 pounds with me. So 2 years for 80 pounds is is great. And she's just doing phenomenal.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's great.
Well, we're going to get some more people connected with Chelsey. I know that a lot of people right now, especially at the end of the year, are looking to make some changes for 2021.
Yes.
Also, I'm going to tag, if you don't mind, can I tag and share the name of your physician that you had shared earlier?
Yes.
Because that may be a really great resource for anyone
great
else.
Place to start. Sure. I will give you, I have a few practitioners that I work with, and I'll give you all of them.
Okay. That'd be fantastic. So we can share those resources. But thank you again, Chelsey, for joining us on Destination Marriage. I'm sure she's going to be a regular. I hope.
So much fun.
We'll have you again. We're definitely probably next time going to touch on all things birth control, because that sounds like a conversation we definitely need to have.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, thanks, guys. Tune in. We will post it, and I will share it on the Instagram, so you guys can also share it with your friends and your family. Again, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or anywhere else you find your podcasts. Thanks, guys. Bye. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and if so, please continue to listen and subscribe on Podbean, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from. We would greatly appreciate positive reviews, and we will answer any questions at feedback@destinationmarriagepodcast.com. For up-to-date content and news about the podcast, you can follow us on Instagram at destination_marriage and visit our website at destinationmarriagepodcast.com. Be sure to tune in next week.